"Get out of my office now or you will regret this. We don't serve frauds like you." The bank manager's voice, sharp and venomous, sliced through the quiet hum of the office. Gabriela Washington, calm and resolute just moments before, was caught off guard by the sudden violence. Two security guards, each twice her size, seized her arms. Despite her composed exterior, she hadn't expected to be physically assaulted in a public institution, in broad daylight. The force of their grip caused her to lose her hold on her phone. It clattered to the floor and skidded beneath the manager's mahogany desk, taking with it any chance of documenting the unfolding nightmare. Then came a glint of steel. Sharp scissors sliced through her meticulously crafted braids, each severed strand a silent testament falling to the cold marble floor. Muffled sobs escaped her as she was restrained, while customers and employees watched in a collective, stunned silence. She had come seeking simple banking services. Instead, her dignity was being stripped away. But what these people didn't know was who they were truly humiliating. They saw a powerless woman. They had no idea of the power she held or what would happen when she finally revealed who she really was. That fateful morning had begun like any other for Gabriela. She had carefully styled her hair, a crown of beautiful box braids that had taken 8 hours to complete the previous weekend. At 38, Gabriela Washington embodied excellence. Growing up in a working-class Detroit neighborhood, she learned early that she would have to work twice as hard to get half as far. It was a lesson she took to heart. By her mid-30s, she had become a sought-after executive in the financial world, her name appearing regularly in Fortune and Forbes for her innovative approaches to ethical investing. When the board of Premier Financial Bank began searching for fresh leadership, Gabriela's name topped their list. After months of negotiations, she agreed to join their board with the understanding that she would soon transition into the CEO position. The board was impressed by her vision for community-focused banking that was also highly profitable. What they didn't know was Gabriela's personal methodology. 2 weeks before her official announcement as incoming CEO, she made an unusual decision. Rather than rely on reports and statistics, she would visit several branches incognito to experience their service as an ordinary customer. "You can't fix what you don't understand," she told her assistant. "And you can't understand what you haven't experienced." This wasn't a publicity stunt. It was her way of witnessing the truth before attempting to reshape it. She selected 5 branches to visit, including the one in Westfield, an affluent suburb whose imposing limestone facade projected stability and tradition. For 15 years, its manager, Jennifer Pierce, had run the location with what was called impressive efficiency. What the regional directors didn't see was the culture Jennifer had cultivated, one where certain customers received royal treatment, while others were subtly, or not so subtly, discouraged. With her highlighted blonde hair and country club connections, Jennifer had transformed a public bank into her personal fiefdom. As a black woman, Gabriela's hair journey had been deeply personal. For years, she had chemically straightened her curls, spending thousands of dollars to maintain a look corporate America deemed professional. The burns on her scalp, the damaged edges, all were considered necessary sacrifices. But 3 years ago, having reached a position of influence, she made a choice. She would no longer compromise her identity. She let her natural hair grow, often wearing it in protective styles like the braids she wore today. The transition wasn't easy. She noticed the microaggressions, the subtle shifts in how colleagues addressed her, but she stood firm. That morning, she chose a conservative charcoal gray pantsuit and minimal jewelry. No designer labels, no status watches, nothing to signal her true position. Looking in the mirror, she reminded herself of her purpose: to ensure Premier Financial served all communities equally. "Time to see what's happening," she said to her reflection, "when no one thinks the boss is watching." Pulling into the parking lot in a modest rental car, she took a deep breath. She carried a simple leather portfolio containing fictitious business plans, a community development project she would pretend to seek funding for. It was a test designed to assess how the bank treated entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds. The interior was impeccable: mahogany desks, leather seating, digital displays. Everything conveyed exclusivity. Gabriela approached the reception desk where a young woman, Amber, glanced up briefly before returning to her screen. 1 minute passed, then 2. Gabriela waited patiently. The doors opened, and an older white couple entered. Amber immediately brightened. "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Davidson. How was your trip to the Bahamas?" For 10 minutes, she chatted with them, standing directly beside Gabriela as if she were invisible. After the Davidsons were personally escorted to an office, Gabriela continued to wait. A man in a golf shirt entered. He was helped immediately. 27 minutes had now passed since she first approached the desk. She had been bypassed by 5 separate customers, all white, all immediately assisted. Finally, Amber looked up, her expression tight with impatience. "Is there something you need?" "Good morning," Gabriela said professionally. "I'd like to speak with someone about business banking services." Amber's eyes traveled slowly from Gabriela's face to her braids, then down to her handbag and shoes. Her expression soured. "Are you sure you're in the right place?" she asked, her voice dripping with condescension. "The check-cashing store down on Maple Street might be more your speed." The implication was unmistakable. Maintaining her composure, Gabriela placed a business card on the counter, one she'd had made for this exercise, identifying her as the CEO of a modest consulting firm. "I'd like to discuss a business loan for a community development project," she said evenly. "I'd prefer to speak with the branch manager." Amber picked up the card with visible distaste. "Miss Pierce is very busy with important clients," she said. "If you insist, you'll have to wait. I can't promise she'll have time for you." "I'm happy to wait," Gabriela replied. Amber pointed to a small, isolated seating area behind a large potted plant. As Gabriela sat, she felt the atmosphere shift. An older woman nearby gathered her purse and moved away. 2 others began whispering, their eyes darting toward her braids. "So unprofessional," one murmured, loud enough for Gabriela to hear. "It's so intimidating." Each comment reinforced why her mission was so necessary. 47 minutes after she had first entered the bank, Amber finally approached her. "Miss Pierce will see you now." The receptionist led her to a corner office. Jennifer Pierce, a woman in her mid-40s with a sleek blonde bob and a cream-colored designer suit, sat behind an imposing desk. She looked up with an expression of unfiltered distaste before arranging her features into a tight, professional smile that never reached her eyes. "Miss Washington is here about a business loan," Amber announced, her tone implying it was a waste of time. Jennifer nodded curtly. The door closed, and Gabriela was left standing. The customary invitation to sit never came. "How can I help you?" Jennifer asked, a clear power play. "Good morning, Miss Pierce," Gabriela began warmly. "I'm interested in financing options for a community development project." Jennifer's eyes performed the same slow, evaluative scan as the receptionist's. "I see," she said, her words stretched out. "And do you understand how business banking works, Miss Washington? Given your urban background, you might find our requirements challenging." The coded language was clear. Gabriela ignored it. "I've prepared a comprehensive business plan." She stepped forward to place the documents on the desk, but Jennifer leaned dramatically to the side. "I'm sorry," the manager said with a theatrical sigh, "but your hair is blocking my view. Actually," she continued, "we've had several customers mention that they find your hairstyle intimidating. Perhaps you might consider a more conventional style for future business meetings." "My hairstyle is professional," Gabriela responded calmly, "and I'd prefer to focus on the business proposal." She proceeded to outline the project, a small business incubator designed to support minority entrepreneurs. As she spoke, Jennifer's expression shifted from dismissive to openly amused. When Gabriela finished, Jennifer laughed, a short, derisive sound. "Let me get this straight," she said, dropping all pretense of professionalism. "You want Premier Financial to invest in underserved communities? That's a creative euphemism. Tell me, Miss Washington, are you planning to open a hair salon in the hood because that seems more aligned with your expertise?" The blatant, undisguised racism hung in the air. It was a moment that would have justified outrage. A moment Gabriela could have ended by revealing her true identity. She saw the satisfaction in her mind's eye, watching Jennifer's smug expression dissolve into pure horror. The words formed on her tongue. "Actually, Miss Pierce, I should introduce myself properly." The words, "I'm Gabriela Washington, newly appointed board member and incoming CEO of Premier Financial's parent company," hovered on the tip of her tongue. The revelation would have been a thunderclap of immediate, satisfying justice. But as Gabriela opened her mouth, a colder, more strategic instinct took over. Unmasking herself now would certainly bring swift consequences for Jennifer, but it would also alert the entire organization to her undercover assessment. More importantly, it would end this evaluation prematurely. She needed to see the full depth of the rot. If Jennifer was this comfortable expressing racist views in a first meeting, what else was festering in the walls of this branch? I'd still like to discuss the loan products you offer, Gabriela said instead, her voice a calm counterpoint to the storm brewing within her. Could you provide information about your small business loan requirements? Jennifer Pierce tapped a manicured fingernail against the polished mahogany of her desk. Her expression, already cool, hardened into something like ice as she examined Gabriela's proposal. Without looking up, she slid the documents back across the desk, a gesture of clear dismissal. Before we proceed with any discussion of business services, Jennifer announced, her tone clipped and official, I'll need to verify your identity more thoroughly. It's bank policy for new clients, especially for requests involving significant funding. It was the first direct lie. Premier Financial had no such policy for initial consultations. Of course, Gabriela replied smoothly, reaching into her handbag. She produced her driver's license, the plastic cool against her fingertips. I understand the need for proper verification. Jennifer took the license and studied it with an exaggerated theatrical scrutiny. The photo, taken 3 years prior, showed Gabriela with chemically straightened hair, the corporate armor she had worn for years before finally embracing her natural texture. This doesn't look like you at all, Jennifer declared, her voice laced with manufactured suspicion. She held up the ID, pointing a finger at the image. The person in this photo has straight hair, and frankly, she looks better fed. Your appearance is completely different. The implication that changing her hairstyle constituted a form of fraud was so absurd it was almost breathtaking. That is me, Gabriela explained, her voice perfectly even. I wore my hair differently then, and I've since lost some weight. As you can see, the facial features are a perfect match. Jennifer's eyes remained chips of ice. I'll need to see additional identification. A passport, perhaps, and a credit card bearing your name. Again, Gabriela complied, producing her passport and an American Express card, but each document was met with the same wall of suspicion. When the passport photo also showed straightened hair, Jennifer's feigned concern seemed to deepen rather than resolve. These discrepancies are concerning, Jennifer said, her voice dripping with a performative professionalism that barely masked her hostility. The banking industry has strict protocols, I'm sure you understand. While maintaining eye contact, Jennifer's hand slipped beneath her desk. Gabriela saw the subtle press of a button, a silent security alert. It was a deliberate escalation, a power play meant to intimidate. Is there a problem with my identification? Gabriela asked, her tone still placid, though she knew precisely what was unfolding. Let's just say I have my concerns, Jennifer replied, her lips thinning into a condescending line. Seconds later, the office door opened without a knock. A security guard, tall and broad-shouldered with a military-style haircut, filled the doorway. Everything okay in here, Ms. Pierce? He asked, his hand resting casually near the taser at his belt as his eyes locked onto Gabriela. Jennifer turned to him, her face a mask of practiced concern. We may have a situation, Dave, a potential case of identity fraud. Would you mind staying close while I sort this out? The guard nodded, taking a position just inside the door. His presence transformed the office from a place of business into a holding cell. There's been a misunderstanding, Gabriela stated calmly. My identification is legitimate. Jennifer ignored her, picking up her desk phone. I'll need to make some calls, she announced, nodding meaningfully toward the guard. What happened next elevated the encounter from discrimination to a public spectacle of humiliation. As Jennifer spoke quietly into the receiver, her door opened again. It was the elderly white woman from the waiting area, the one who had physically recoiled from Gabriela's presence. Excuse me, the woman interrupted loudly, addressing Jennifer while pointedly ignoring Gabriela. I couldn't help but notice this person was brought into your office and I wanted to express my concerns. Jennifer placed the phone down, her expression shifting to one of solicitous care. What concerns you, Mrs. Hoffman? Emboldened, the woman's voice grew louder, clearly intending to be overheard. I've been banking here for 30 years, and I've never felt unsafe until today. That woman's hair. It looks like it could be hiding anything. Weapons, recording devices. It's intimidating. The assertion that her braided hair could conceal contraband was so deeply rooted in racist caricature it would have been laughable in any other context. Here, it was a weapon. Jennifer nodded sympathetically. "I understand your concerns, Mrs. Hoffman. Rest assured, we're taking appropriate security measures." "Well, I should hope so," the woman huffed. "This isn't the type of clientele Premier Financial used to attract. I remember when this was a respectable establishment." The racism, barely veiled before, was now naked in the open air, and Jennifer Pierce, instead of diffusing the situation, was fanning the flames. Throughout this extraordinary display, Gabriela remained seated, her posture impeccable, her expression a study in neutrality. A lesser person might have erupted in fury or fled in shame, but Gabriela Washington had spent a lifetime navigating hostile corporate environments. She knew any display of emotion would be weaponized against her. When Mrs. Hoffman finally departed with a self-satisfied sniff, Gabriela addressed Jennifer directly. "I'd like to see your anti-discrimination policy, please," she requested, her voice steady and clear. The request was like a stone dropped into a still pond. Jennifer's practiced composure faltered, a flicker of genuine surprise in her eyes before the mask snapped back into place. "Excuse me?" "Premier Financial's anti-discrimination policy," Gabriela repeated. "Federal law requires you to maintain one. I'd like to review it." As she spoke, she discreetly tapped a sequence on her smartwatch, a pre-programmed alert that sent her location and a distress signal to her executive team. It wasn't an act of panic, but of strategy. Whatever happened next would be documented. Jennifer's face hardened, all pretense of professionalism gone. "I'm not sure what you're implying, but we treat all qualified customers equally." She gestured to the security guard, who stepped closer. A second guard now appeared in the doorway. "Dave, John, please stay close." She turned back to Gabriela, her voice dripping with venom. "Let me be frank, Ms. Washington, if that's even your name. The problem isn't your identification. It's your failure to present yourself in a manner appropriate for this institution. Your hair, your attitude, you're simply not a good fit for Premier Financial." As she spoke, the two guards moved to flank Gabriela's chair, a clear tactic of intimidation. The office door remained open, a stage for the humiliation to come. This was the moment to drop the bomb, to reveal her identity and watch Jennifer's world crumble. But something held her back. She had to see how far they would go when they believed they were untouchable. "Get out of my office," Jennifer finally snarled. But Gabriela stood her ground, her simple refusal to be dismissed enraging the other woman. Jennifer's eyes flashed with a cruel idea. She would make an example of her. "I believe we're done here," Jennifer announced, signaling the guards. "This person is attempting to commit fraud." What followed unfolded with a terrifying precision that suggested it was a practiced routine. Both guards moved in unison, grabbing Gabriela's arms and yanking her from the chair. The sudden violence of it shocked her. Her phone clattered to the floor, skidding under the desk and severing her ability to record. "What are you doing? Take your hands off me!" Gabriela demanded, her professional calm finally cracking. For the first time, real alarm flared in her voice. Their fingers dug into her arms, a bruising pressure she knew would leave marks. They half lifted, half dragged her from the office out into the main lobby. An immediate charged silence fell over the bank. Tellers froze. Customers stopped mid-sentence. Every eye turned to the bizarre procession. Two large guards restraining a woman in a business suit, led by the branch manager, who walked with the poise of a conductor. Jennifer stopped in the center of the lobby, her voice projecting across the marble floor. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption. This is what happens when people try to commit fraud in my bank. We take security very seriously at Premier Financial." She paused, letting the accusation hang in the air, branding Gabriela a criminal in the eyes of every witness. Then, turning to the guards with a chilling calm, she gave the order that would soon echo across the nation. "Make sure she won't be mistaken for someone else again." She walked to her assistant's desk, opened a drawer, and removed a pair of ordinary office scissors. "Hold her still," Jennifer commanded as she approached, the blades catching the light. The sickening reality of her intent crashed down on Gabriela. "Stop this!" she cried out, struggling against the guard's iron grip. "This is assault! You have no right!" Her protests echoed in the silent lobby, but no one moved. No one spoke. With the calculated precision of a butcher, Jennifer Pierce reached forward and began to cut through Gabriela's braids. One by one, the severed locks fell to the floor with soft, devastating thuds. Tears streamed down Gabriela's face, a testament to the profound emotional violence of the act. "This is a hate crime," she choked out, her voice trembling but clear. "You are committing a hate crime in front of witnesses." "This is ensuring your ID matches your appearance," Jennifer replied coldly, her voice loud enough for the onlookers to hear her perverse justification. Now there won't be any confusion. The assault felt like an eternity, but even as the trauma unfolded, Gabriela's mind remained sharp. She pressed another sequence on her watch, a different code. This one transmitted not just her location, but direct access codes to the bank's internal security camera system. It was a digital failsafe, and on her wrist, a tiny green light confirmed it was active. It was the only glimmer of hope in a moment of utter degradation. When Jennifer was finished, she stepped back to admire her handiwork, leaving Gabriela with jagged, uneven patches of hair cut brutally close to her scalp. "Now your appearance matches your ID," she announced. "Escort her out." The guards dragged her to the entrance and shoved her roughly onto the sidewalk. One of them threw her handbag and portfolio out after her, their contents spilling onto the concrete. "Don't come back here with that fake ID," he shouted. "We know what you look like now." Shaking, Gabriela stumbled to her car. Once inside, with the doors locked, the armor she had worn her entire life finally shattered. For 2 full minutes, she allowed herself to break down, the sobs racking her body coming from a place of deep, human pain. When the 2 minutes were up, she straightened her spine. She checked her reflection, unflinchingly taking in the damage. The woman staring back was wounded, but not defeated. With hands that were now perfectly steady, she made 3 calls. The first was to her attorney, requesting immediate legal action. The second was to the board chairman, Harold Greenway, whose own frantic call came through as she was dialing. The third was to her personal assistant, to arrange for a hair specialist. Across town, Harold Greenway watched the live security feed on his tablet, his mouth agape in horror. He saw the condescension, the assault, the public shearing. He saw one of his managers mutilate the woman he had just hired to be his new CEO. "My God," he whispered, activating the emergency protocol to convene the entire board. "Get legal on the line now," he barked at his assistant, "and have my car brought around. We have a catastrophe." Back at the Westfield branch, the triumphant atmosphere had curdled into a palpable unease. Employees exchanged nervous glances. Customers, now witnesses, were already posting their accounts to social media. And on Jennifer Pierce's desk, her direct line, her cell phone, and the main branch number all began to ring at once, a shrieking chorus of consequence that would not be silenced. Her email inbox was a torrent of red flags. Urgent messages from corporate headquarters flooded in, each subject line a new escalation of alarm, immediate action required. The regional director was demanding a video call. The head of security for the entire organization was requesting immediate access to the branch's camera footage. The legal department was issuing document preservation notices. The foundation of Jennifer's confidence began to splinter, a cold dread seeping into her veins as she realized something had gone profoundly wrong. The same employees who had offered their tacit support just an hour ago now meticulously avoided her gaze, sensing the shift in the corporate winds and quietly distancing themselves from the coming storm. One of the security guards, Dave, had returned to his station, the unease from the earlier incident churning in his gut. Troubled, he decided to do what should have been done from the start, a simple online search for Gabriela Washington's name. It was a basic act of due diligence, a standard security protocol that had been recklessly bypassed in their rush to judgment. As the search results populated his screen, the color drained from his face. There she was, Gabriela Washington, Harvard MBA, Wall Street powerhouse, and, most damningly, a recently appointed board member and the incoming CEO of Premier Financial's parent company. Her biography was a litany of accolades, keynote speeches, and industry awards. "Oh no," he whispered, his eyes darting toward Jennifer's office, where she was now frantically fielding calls. "What have we done?" He quickly showed the screen to his colleague. In that instant, both men understood with chilling certainty that their careers were over. They had actively participated in the assault of their future CEO, all based on the prejudiced assumptions of a branch manager they had trusted without question. 30 minutes later, Gabriela sat in the quiet of her hotel suite while a professional stylist gently assessed the damage to her hair. The woman's hands moved with a respect and care that stood in stark contrast to the violation she had just endured. "We can even it out," the stylist offered softly, her voice infused with the compassion of someone who understood the deep significance of such an attack on a black woman. "Create a shorter style until it grows back. I can minimize the appearance of the damage." Gabriela stared at her reflection. She saw the uneven, hacked-at patches where her beautiful braids had been. She saw the raw, physical evidence of the discrimination that millions of black women faced, a prejudice that rarely left such undeniable proof. In that moment, a decision crystallized within her, a choice that would define the next chapter of this story. "No," she said, her voice finding a new, unshakable strength. "I don't want to hide what they did. When I return to that bank, I want everyone to see exactly what happened here today. I want Jennifer Pierce to look at me and be forced to see the consequences of her actions. The evidence will be visible, and it will be undeniable." The stylist nodded in silent understanding, making only the minimal adjustments needed to prevent further fraying, carefully preserving the integrity of the assault. As Gabriela prepared to return, her phone buzzed relentlessly with messages from board members expressing their outrage and unwavering support. The chairman himself had arranged to meet her at the bank, bringing the entire executive leadership team with him. Legal counsel was already filing preliminary charges. Public relations was bracing for a media firestorm. Jennifer Pierce was about to learn precisely who she had assaulted, and the reckoning would be swift, public, and absolute. More importantly, under the leadership of Gabriela Washington, Premier Financial was about to undergo a fundamental transformation, one that would finally address the systemic rot that allowed such an act of discrimination to flourish. The cutting of her hair was meant to humiliate and dehumanize. Instead, it had just become the catalyst for institutional change that would impact thousands of employees and millions of customers. An hour after she had been thrown out, a convoy of 3 black luxury vehicles swept up to the front entrance of Premier Financial. The bank's employees watched with a growing sense of dread as board members in expensive suits emerged, forming a protective phalanx around Gabriela Washington as she stepped out of the final car. Her head was held high, her gaze steady, making no attempt to conceal her partially shorn hair. Flanked by the board chairman, Harold Greenway, on one side, and the company's chief legal counsel on the other, she radiated an aura of calm, unassailable authority. Behind them, 6 other board members and executives followed, an unmistakable display of corporate force. As they swept into the lobby, Jennifer Pierce was speaking with a customer. She looked up, and upon recognizing Gabriela, her face went white. The portfolio she was holding slipped from her grasp, scattering papers across the polished floor. She stood frozen for a beat, a statue of disbelief, before turning abruptly to retreat to the safety of her office. "Ms. Pierce," Chairman Greenway called out, his voice sharp and authoritative, stopping her mid-stride. "Please remain in the lobby." Jennifer froze, a visible tremor running through her as the full catastrophic weight of her situation crashed down. The security guards who had manhandled Gabriela now stood awkwardly at their posts, paralyzed with uncertainty as the highest echelons of corporate power filled their branch. Chairman Greenway strode to the reception desk and picked up the phone for the bank's PA system. His voice, amplified, resonated through the entire building. "Attention all Premier Financial customers and employees. I am Harold Greenway, chairman of the board. I must inform you of a deeply disturbing incident that occurred in this branch today. The woman who was forcibly removed and assaulted earlier is Gabriela Washington, our newly appointed majority shareholder and the incoming CEO of Premier Financial. Ms. Washington was conducting an undercover assessment of our branches when she was subjected to discriminatory treatment and physical assault." A profound silence fell over the lobby as customers and employees absorbed the revelation. Jennifer stood paralyzed, her entire career flashing before her eyes. Among the customers, reactions were stark. Several stared in horror, hands covering their mouths as they realized they had just witnessed the assault of their bank's own CEO. Others looked down, a flush of shame on their faces, recognizing their own complicity in remaining silent. Near the exit, Mrs. Hoffman, the elderly woman who had complained about Gabriela's hair, tried to slip away unnoticed. As she reached for the door, Gabriela's voice cut through the silence. "Mrs. Hoffman," she said, her tone firm but calm, "you can't leave yet." The woman froze, turning back reluctantly, unable to meet Gabriela's gaze. Gabriela nodded to an IT specialist who had accompanied them. A moment later, the security footage from earlier flashed across every digital display in the lobby. Everyone present was forced to witness the incident in stark, undeniable detail. The discrimination, the physical restraint, Jennifer hacking at Gabriela's hair while she was held down, and the final, humiliating act of being thrown out of the bank. The footage played without commentary, its visual evidence more powerful than any words. When it ended, Jennifer stumbled forward, her voice shaking with desperation. "I was following protocol for suspected fraud," she pleaded. Her identification didn't match her appearance. "I was protecting the bank's interests." Gabriela raised a hand, and Jennifer's defense died in her throat. The lobby was utterly still. "Let me be clear about what happened today," Gabriela stated, her voice steady and powerful. "I was subjected to racial discrimination from the moment I walked through those doors. I was ignored at reception while white customers who arrived after me were served immediately. When I finally spoke with Ms. Pierce, she made derogatory comments about my hair, my professional qualifications, and what she called my urban background, a term she used knowing nothing about me." Gabriela walked closer to Jennifer, who seemed to shrink with each step. "You violated Premier Financial's anti-discrimination policies, federal banking regulations, and basic human decency. You authorized a physical assault against me that was rooted in racist stereotypes about black women. Your actions were not protecting this bank. They were poisoning it and everything it is supposed to stand for." Chairman Greenway stepped forward, his gaze fixed on Jennifer. "Jennifer Pierce, your employment with Premier Financial is terminated, effective immediately. The same applies to the security personnel and the receptionist involved in this incident." He gestured to two corporate security officers. "Please escort Ms. Pierce to her office to collect her personal items and then off the premises." Gabriela added, her voice cutting. "Please ensure your personal items are removed within 15 minutes, the same courtesy of time you offered me." As a stunned Jennifer was led away, Gabriela's lawyer addressed the remaining staff and customers. "Criminal charges for assault and civil rights violations are being filed against the individuals involved. Furthermore, Premier Financial will be reviewing the accounts of all customers present, particularly those who actively participated in today's discrimination. We cannot and will not do business with clients who engage in such behavior." At this, Mrs. Hoffman clutched her purse, her face burning with humiliation. "This isn't about one incident or one branch," Gabriela announced to the entire room. "What happened today is a symptom of a culture that we will eradicate. Premier Financial will become an institution where every single person is treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their appearance or background. That transformation begins now." Jennifer was escorted out the front doors and directly into the custody of waiting police officers. Gabriela Washington remained, taking control of the branch and setting in motion the sweeping changes that would ensure what happened to her would never happen again. If you were moved by this story, please like, subscribe, and share it with others. We believe stories have the power to teach and inspire change. Our next story is one you won't want to miss.